Next up is Mark Earls, whose job title I believe is Advertising Contrarian or Herd Master. He's been a planner for 20 years, was recently called Malcolm Gladwell on speed by The Guardian. Mark Earls. And you've all presumably read his book, Herd. Good. Ready, steady, go.
In preparation for my paper I'm giving tomorrow, which very proudly John Kieran announced today, according to his decision markets, is the least influential paper in this conference. In researching that, I found something called gastromarketing, and I want to recommend it to you all as a new technique which will help us really understand what's going on in consumers' heads and predict what they're going to do next. This is our job, really, understanding mass behaviour, understanding what people do in large numbers. And I don't know what these people are doing, but they're somewhere near centre point and all looking up. I've got a collection of these, because the next couple of photographs are exactly the same. We're not very good at it, because we start here with individuals. Here's just one person pointing and looking up. We try to understand what she's doing. So we ask her questions, either in qualitative or quantitative format, about what she's doing, why she's motivated, where she feels she might be going, and what's it all about. And then we gross those up to produce a sort of aggregate version of them. We sometimes ask people in pairs, less in quantitative research than in qualitative research, and sometimes that reveals new and interesting things, because at least some of us have worked out that human beings are first and foremost social animals, and maybe some in the social context and new stuff might come out that they wouldn't tell us individually. And sometimes we actually then go on and ask people in larger social groups, although as has been pointed out, these are often very forced social groups. They are people who've barely met before and then pretend to know each other or not to know each other. But they're very rarely the groups in which they live their lives. So we take this information, aggregate it up and try and predict. Now, unfortunately, there is a big problem with all of this stuff, which is first initiated here. A lot of our skills and techniques come from clinical psychology. We listen very closely to what's important to people. And if you've worked at all in psychotherapy, or spoken to anyone who has, they'll tell you that actually individuals are very bad guides to their own lives. One of the examples of this is that they tend not to tell us the truth about what they do and why they do it, or indeed what they've done, or what will happen, because they're not very good witnesses to their own lives. So, there are some really fantastic techniques which have been developed in recent years for us market researchers to explore and get a better angle on people's behaviour. The first of which is just watching them, or as Douglas was saying in the conference this morning, hanging about on Ibiza will tell you a lot. Will tell you a lot about what young people do today.
It's essential.
It's essential. Yeah, I wish I'd been a youth researcher. So now this is the good stuff. This is neuromarketing, what I call the big donut brain scanner, the silly hat brain scanner, and Mr. Peggedy face. This answers a basic problem that we all have in market research, this thing of lying. It gets inside people's heads and you get a good rummage around. Because after all, as Tess Alps said in The Guardian last year, brains don't lie, people do. So this seems to be the perfect answer. And this is you'll see this tomorrow if you bother to come to the least influential paper in the conference. It's a very important slide tomorrow, quite unimportant here. There are a number of problems though with this neuromarketing shit. The first of which is the packaging is really quite hard to unpack. I don't know if you spotted that. And if you're a woman, bad news here, women's skulls are thicker than men's. So it's even more of a difficulty to get those probes in there. The second thing is there's 200,000 miles of wiring in a human brain, and it's quite complicated and does a number of things. Now, whatever they tell you with the vendors of neuromarketing, we don't know much about precisely what happens yet. We're at the end of the beginning and not much further on. So that's really quite complicated to work out. Is it significant when something bursts into life in the brain? The answer is down below. So if you all put your right hand on your tummies, please. This is the seat of emotion, has been the seat of emotion in many cultures, and it's actually only got one other function. This part of your body, only one other function. Guess what? It's a bit messy, but there we are. I don't know if any other speakers had this same feeling as me, but actually it was just before we started this evening, there was a very, very clear indication of fear and anxiety. And so that's one indication of how successful, how useful stomachs are in doing this. The other thing, of course, is easy access. No complicated skull to get through. And you can go in through one end, that's really quite useful. And there is, of course, the alternative approach. Which actually, there's some things for you to play with. If you'd like to have a look in that bag, there's something quite useful. These gloves might prove useful to gastro marketers. There are some hygiene issues, but I'm sure we can work that out in the code of conduct. So there we are. Gastro marketing is a genius thing and tells us an awful lot about our emotions and much more directly, easily accessible than neuromarketing. And the Germans having technology for us is really useful. I don't know if you notice this in German hotel rooms. That's brilliant. So we can look at some of the byproducts very quickly. There's a bit of a cultural thing there. Okay, so look, I'm not being terribly serious here, but I will be now for a moment. I think this stuff reveals why we don't do this is not just because I'm making it up, or because it's messy. I think the reason why we don't pursue gastro-marketing, where a lot of medical folk will tell you it's a better place to look than in the brain to understand emotion, is not because we think it's messy, but because we believe somehow, for some reason, we insist on it's all going on in here. We just have to lift the lid to find out. Yes, they don't tell us the truth, so we'll go to their unconscious, is what Jerry Zoltman in the States tells us. It's all going on in here. No, so that won't help, so we'll drill holes and we'll attach electrodes to the head. That'll tell us. No, it won't. Because the truth is, human beings do what they do, first and foremost, because of what other human beings do. And that's the big divide that's emerging in our ways of thinking about methodology and market research. Enjoy.